it's hard because not many people have dominated the way that he dominates in really anything. But
Mhm.
it's like if you're talking about the conversation gets much more interesting if you take Michael Jordan out of who's the best basketball player.
Right.
If you remove Michael Jordan,
Right.
the conversation suddenly becomes like significantly more interesting because people can't just say like with Hoff, you can just say biggest fucking total, biggest all like full meat bench, most WPO wins, youngest guy squad thought like all of these things, right? You can just do it.
Right.
But if you remove him, then it's like, okay, well, what are we talking about here? Are we going to talk about Andy Bolton, like 1,000 pound squat, 1,000 pound deadlift in the same meet? Are we going to talk Alexander Kucher, who pulled 793 at 165? Like, are we going to talk about Belkin? Are we talking? Then all of a sudden it gets into like, now are we talking about Raw? Are we talking about all of these things get kind of lumped into it? And then you got guys like, Henry Thomason, who's had like a tough, I think he's bombed out of like 8 meets in a row, but that guy went 2021, 22 in one meet. And he went raw, single ply, multiply in one fucking meet.
Oh my Lord.
So it's like, would I consider him an all time great? Probably not. But like, that is fucked, you know?
Right.
so, yeah, like you get around all these guys, and all of a sudden it's like, people tell me that I'm good at lifting weights, and it's like, yeah, I think that I'm pretty good, and I think I've really worked very hard to get to where I am. But imposter syndrome, and when you've been around guys like that, it's like, well, fuck, like, yeah, I squatted 1102 this past weekend, but I mean, Travis McKinney squatted 1113 at 217 pounds, so he's 40 pounds lighter than me, and he squatted 10 pounds more, and it's like, well, fuck me. Like, like who am I? So I try to just stay humble about it. And I think that if I ever allowed myself to be like, yeah, I'm fucking sick, I think I might take my foot off the gas.
Sure.
And I want to get everything I can out of like my body. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. One quick question about Hoff. Do you think he is more gifted like physically, or is it the mental part of it? Because I find the mindset part of him and like the way he thinks about things and stuff like that is extremely fascinating. And it seems to be very different than like not just the average person, but even like high level people.
Yeah. So are we going right now?
Yeah, I went ahead and started it because I didn't want to miss out on that information you were just sharing right there. So
Yeah,
welcome,
yeah, cool.
welcome everyone to the Relevant Podcast. Anthony Oliveira with us today for episode 36. So yeah,
No,
let's just jump right into it.
yeah, all good. So I think with Hoffman, I can't really speak for him, but I can say that like guys at that level they're different, right? They think about stuff differently. I actually said to him and Jim Granick this weekend where it's like a lot of people can't wrap their head around weights. Their head stops them
Mhm.
from doing the thing, right? Like if you look up on open powerlifting, you look up the 1,000 pound squats. Look how many 990s there are, and then look at how many thousands there are. A lot more 990s. And then look at how many 1,005s there are. A lot more thousands than there are 1,005. Like if you go and you squat 10-10, you go up like fucking 30 spots because people have a hard time recreating that moment where they squat the 1,000 pounds, right? So with him, I said to him, I was just like, it's like you just wonder with him, it's like, his brain can handle the weight, like, but has he gone to the gym enough to physically lift the weight?
Okay.
Because Hoff is a minimalist with his training. So, and I know like he, with his dad passed away and stuff, so he had to take over the family business. He had lots of stuff, so it's just been like, from what I understand, in and out. The gym stuff has been kind of, I don't want to say back burner, but it hasn't been um like this super rigid, consistent thing. So, but with him, it's like in his brain, he thinks he can do whatever he wants. So the concern is like, okay, like your head around it, but like are his arms strong enough to handle the load right now? And it consistently shows that it is. But I think that like his mindset's just different, and I think that something that separates him, um, and something that like I kind of feel like I have as well, is the ability to reframe things into a positive always, right? So it's like Yeah, man, like I haven't PR'd my total since 2021. But when I did that, I only had like so my best total is 2505, and I had only totaled over 24 four times, including the two 2,500-pound totals. And now since then, I've gone over 25 like 3 or 4 times, like super consistently have raised, Hoff talks about this too, like raising your average. So I know on a bad day, if I get two of any of my lifts, so if I go 4 for 9, I can total 2,400. So then it just takes a couple more bumps and then you're into the 25. So I've gained a lot of consistency. And you can kind of like adjust your mindset where it's like, no, like this last meet, I didn't PR my total. I totaled 2452, 6 pounds off of my best WPO total and like 50 pounds off of my best all-time total. But first time squatting 1102 in a WPO meet, first time squatting 1100 in a meet since 2021. Probably one of my best 1074s I've ever done. And I benched over 12 weeks after breaking my elbow. So to me, it's like, and I came in, 6th place. So to me, it was a positive day where a lot of people might get a little poopy pants about it. But I really you have to understand the process where it's like, that's something that he taught me. It's like, it's always, it's positive, like my first WPO meet was the first meet I was at after the first time I left Westside, first time I got kicked out of Westside. And it took me 3 tries to get a squat in. I opened with a 600-pound bench, which I had never done before, was a 20-pound PR, and I had missed 3 or 4 times. Opened with 600, missed 617 twice. So I'm 2 for 6 going into deadlifts. And, Hoff said, well, you'll learn how to make a total in a different way. Because in the past, the only way I could PR my total was if I got 3 squats, basically 2 or 3 squats, because my squat was so much bigger than the others, right? And then, I pulled for a PR deadlift on my second, and then I had to pull for a PR total on my third, which is hard, as you well know. Like, you've already pulled your PR deadlift, now you got to pull another PR to get the total. And Joe Bayless, who is a severely underrated lifter, like OG Westside guy, incredible fucking lifter and an awesome guy. He said to me, you'll figure out right now if you have to pull a third deadlift to beat somebody, if you have the balls to do it. Because I wasn't in the running for any sort of placing. I was just doing, and that stuck with me. And, fast forward, that was in 2017, 18, 17, something like that. Fast forward to nationals, like a year or two later, I had to pull my second deadlift. I had to pull to beat somebody, and a third deadlift I had to pull like a 35-pound PR to go over 2,500 for the first time. And I remembered that moment, and I was able to draw from that and that learning experience to do what I had to do in that moment. So all of that to say, like, I think that a lot of this stuff comes down to what's between your ears. And I think a lot of people kind of like fool themselves into thinking that they are willing to do what it takes to separate themselves from the norm and the average, but like they're actually not. And the nasty part about powerlifting is the better you get, the harder it becomes. It's not like a 82 game professional hockey season that you've been playing for 10 years. You're a veteran in the league and you've gotten better, but as you get better, you kind of get into your rhythm. You know what you need to do to stay healthy, and you just, I don't want to say you're coasting, but you're kind of just, you know how to get through it. With powerlifting, like the only way to do more is to do more, and figuring out how to do that. So it takes a lot of brain stuff and like sort of like pride in pushing yourself past those limits. So kind of all that to say is like, yeah, Hoff is a different breed. And I think that it's more, genetically, obviously he has some gifts. I think a lot of it is the emotional, mental sort of brain power stuff that really takes him from like, just with the genetics, he would be great. I think just with the genetics, he's a 2,800 guy. And the brain gives him the 3,100, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Circling back to the reframing thing, can you explain to people how you went through, these pretty serious injuries on this prep and you still came back and did some crazy shit in a meet like you were talking about? It still get sixth in what is that? It's the best power or multiply meet in the world,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, most stacked, I would say. Like, I would say I mean, there were 5 or 6 4-digit squats. Like, there was 4 or 5, 4 guys opening over 1,000. Like, it was really stacked meet as far as talent's concerned. Yeah, but like, dude, it just comes down to just continuing to show up. That's literally all it is. Like, there was no moment where I was like, I'm not going to do this meet. Like, that did not enter my last squat workout. I was getting ready for my last set of squats, and I just, it was like speed work or whatever. I'm putting my belt on, and I said to my training partners, I was like, "Hey guys, remember when I wasn't sure if I was going to do this meet?" And they all just started laughing. They're like, "Nope, don't remember that, because that never fucking happened." And because to me, you're not allowed to take a token bench in the WPO. You have to wear a bench shirt. So to me, my plan was to just like, I figured like with my elbow, I figured I could still squat 1,000, even if I didn't touch a straight bar until the day of the meet. I was like, I am confident in that. So if my injury is so fucked that I can't put on my suit until I'm in the warm-up room, so be it. I'm confident that I can make something happen, and I can like hold it with one finger on one side and be uneven or whatever. And then put on a loose bench shirt, bench 200 pounds or whatever. And then, it's my underhand that I hurt my elbow. So with the deadlift, I knew I can pull hook grip like 620, 630. So I was like, yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, I'll go 1,000, 200, 6, whatever. Right. And then I just continued to fucking train. Like, it just didn't stop. Right. So it's like, because of my background, being at Westside and stuff, we kind of learned how to like all the stuff they say that's negative about conjugate, where there's not like a high level of specificity. That helped me in this situation, because it's like, I know how to, it's like, okay, it's deadlift day. I can't fucking do deadlifts. What am I going to do? How am I going to program this? Like, okay, well, fuck it. I have a Zercher harness. So I'm going to go week 1. I'm going to fucking go in. I'm going to go Zercher harness off a pin, whatever, with bands. And I'm going to work up to a heavy triple. And then the next week, now that I've kind of got the skill of using the harness, I'm going to work up to a heavy double. Okay, cool. Now I did that. I can't do a lot of full range stuff, but I can get on a lat pull down and I can just flex my lats, and I can do back extensions, and I can do fucking good mornings, and I can do all these things. I know that for me personally, I know that if I have one session where I pull speed against like a double monster band, I know that my grip gets good enough to hold 700 just off of that. Like, I know that, right? So it's like, okay, throw that in at the very end, and we know that we're good. And like with the squat stuff, it's like, okay, I can't straight bar squat right now. Fine. Fuck it. I can get really fucking strong with safety squat bar, no fucking hands against bands. I know. And then once I got cleared to like put my hands down, I could do cambered bar. And I focused on just getting strong, because when we were at Westside, it was like, man, like I didn't deadlift off the floor at Westside for 2 years. We would go to a meet, and I would be, the first time I squatted 1,000 ever in a meet, I hadn't free squatted outside of the meet in fucking months. You just learn how to get strong, show up, and try stuff. And so I just kind of adapted that philosophy and was like, all right, like, can I trust my knowledge in getting the right things strong at the right time in this prep to get me ready for this meet? So it's like, I'm looking and I'm like, okay, like as soon as I started being able to like press some shit, I'm like, okay, we'll go reverse blue band and we'll just go to 3 plates. It's almost weightless. I'm just doing stuff, right? I can't really do tricep stuff for down here because this is where the injury was. But I can do high tricep stuff, so I can do like straight arm pull downs, push downs, stuff like that. I can do pec flies. I can do like inner chest press, like all these weird bodybuilding type stuff. So we went like 3 plates with the blue band. I think I went up to 3 plates quarter for 5 sets of 5. And then the next week, I just dropped the band to the next band down and then tried to go more bar weight with a lesser band. And then I did the same thing the next week and the same thing the next week. And then I got into a single ply shirt and was like, I left the wrap on my elbow under the shirt, just made sure I could touch and press something. I touched like, I think 440 or 445, pressed it. Was like, okay, it was sketchy, but I feel like worst case scenario, I can do that. Now it's like, all right, what do we do now? And I usually don't train upper back or lats on bench day. That's like a deadlift or secondary bench day stuff. But I couldn't do as much tricep work, so I added in some upper back on those days. So I went, I think we were 6 weeks out maybe. I took a reverse blue band raw bench and I got a fucking all-time PR. I did like 655 raw. And that was like a 2-year-old PR that I had missed a bunch of times. So I was like, okay, I'm fucking stronger than I was the last training cycle. Now, obviously, the reverse band, I probably got really good with a reverse band because I had been doing it so frequently, right? So I kind of cheated the system there, but it was good for up here, right? I just needed to be confident because I was like, if I can do 655 with a reverse band raw in a shirt, I should be able to bench 600. Like, the loading is pretty similar. And then with the deadlift, I just, I basically did Zurcher's good mornings. I mean, I ended up doing a 5, like an all-time PR triple. I think it was, triple with 520 on a cambered bar good morning, like narrow stance. And so I'm like, I'm strong as fuck right now. Like, I know that I am very strong. I just felt a little out of practice, and I was hopeful that like sort of all the practice over the years would just kind of show up on the day of, and fucking thankfully it did. I mean, I think I pulled like 740 off a 2-inch block. And then I got in my canvas and I squatted like 1035 and then went to 1105. Couldn't get out of I don't know if you guys saw the reel that I posted yesterday, but I fucked my back up nasty. Like I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, of all the fucking things, right? And I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it, but I just showed up. I was like, dude, like, I'm not going to not show up. I think that there's power in, like, I don't run from shit. That's not who I am. Like, I go into the fire. So I was like, I'm not going to I've never missed a WPO event. I'm the only person that has done every single WPO event. Now, obviously, there's a couple of guys who didn't do semis because they got a bye week because they came in top 3. But I take pride in the fact that I've done every one of them. So I was like, I'm not going to just like pussy out and not go because I don't feel good. Fuck that. Like, I'm going to go and I'm going to do as good as I can. And it ended up being like my second biggest WPO total. And a lot of it, dude, is just, I tell people there's like the macro, like keep showing up, keep going, right? Like there's like the long term, right? Like it's like, you want to get good at this, just keep showing up for 10 years. You're gonna like get your 10,000 hours in, right? You're gonna get good. But there's also like the micro keep going, like in a training session. So I had sessions in there where like I felt good and I'd go in and it would just kind of turn to shit. And then I'm kind of like trying to pivot and figure out like how to like what I'd be better in this moment. And I'm trying to guide my guys too and program for them and all this stuff. So there were moments where I wanted to just like throw my fucking hands up and be like, I'm done training today. This is fucking ridiculous. Like, but in that moment, you keep going. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, I'm just going to like walk around the gym and I'm going to see something that I'm going to go, oh, I can do that. Oh, I can't do I can't press. Okay, I can do like an incline push-up though. I can do isometrics. I can do tempo. I can do lots of different things. So like I can take the curl bar, the easy curl bar that weighs whatever 22 fucking pounds, and do 100 skull crushers, and like I get some work in, right? And that's just like a mechanism of just continuing to show up. I think people kind of miss that. It's like I was talking about today. I had a guy come up to me a few weeks ago in the gym, just like random, like, you know, like gym bro type of guy. And he's like, man, like, how do I get forearms like that? And I looked at him and I was like, I have never directly trained my forearms once. You get forearms like this by not missing a workout for 10 years. And that's why every plumber has forearms that come out here, because they're fucking, you know, they're up under a sink for 10 years doing this, and it's like their forearms. It's like why big fat motherfuckers have huge calves. They're carrying around a big fat guy all day. Like that's, you know, so but a lot of that is just like showing up, and eventually things kind of come together. Like Dave says it, you can't suck all the time. And you've got just as much of a chance, like, you know, I think he said Bob Coe said this to him, was like, you have just as much of a chance as getting a big one as you do missing one. There's three things that can happen, right? You're going to get it, you're going to miss it, you're going to get hurt. That's it. Like, and to me, once you accept that, it's like, I mean, to me, all of those are kind of the same because you just learn from it. Like, I don't know. And so, yeah, it's more about this particular training cycle was difficult, obviously, with the physical stuff. And then, you know, I had to put my dog down, and that's the second one we've lost in 18 months. And so that was like really difficult for me. But I kind of like, I feed off of, like, a lot of times I can find a way to like feed off of like negative emotion that way. And I actually had a moment where, like, throughout the training cycle, I was kind of owning. You guys had Mike Burl on here, right?
Yeah.
That's my fucking dude. That is my bro. I love Mike. He's like one of my best friends. He's one of the few people on this planet that I feel like really understand. Like, we're very similar in how we approach these sort of things. And me and him would just be texting each other, just like fucking, you know, talking about like how we're the guys who are always hurt, and, you know, and this and that. And you kind of, all of a sudden it becomes part of your, almost part of your personality, right? So and I was in the gym, and I had that back thing happen, right? The following Monday I had to pull a deadlift. I put my suit on and I'm ready to go. And I looked at my guys and I was like, dude, I'm done with this sad boy shit. Like, I'm over it. Like, I'm okay. Yeah, great. Okay, I'm hurt. I don't fucking care. Like, the only thing that can hurt me is something that I allow to hurt me. So fuck this. Like, I want to have fun. I want to change the vibe here. Like, I want to go into like fucking Motley Crue, smoke a cigarette, wrap your fucking car around a tree. Like, let's fucking go. Like, let's just have fun and get wild. And that's how I approached the rest of prep. It was only a couple weeks. And then when I got down there, you know, I'm like getting my knees wrapped for my opening squat, and I'm fucking giving people the finger and talking shit and having fun, and kind of switched my mindset. Like, I used that negative stuff to get me through the really hard part of the prep. And then towards the end, I was like, dude, like, I want to have fun. Like, this is stupid. This is supposed to be fun, right? Like, as far as I'm concerned, I got extra time on my hands based on everything that happened to me when I was younger. So, like, why am I doing this if it's not fun? Like, yeah, I like the torture of it, and I'm a little bit of a masochist and all this stuff, and it's fun to be kind of known as, like, you know, the guy who's tough and can handle the things and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, like, bro, I want to laugh and smile and have fun. Like everything I do, I want to have fun. I don't do anything I don't want to fucking do. So why would I glom onto this like sad fucking, I'm always hurt, I'm this and that? I was like, fuck this. Like, I'm gonna have fun. And it worked. Like, for some reason everything kind of came together, and on the day of, like, I'm getting my knees wrapped, and training partners, we're doing it. And that just relaxed me, and we just kind of fucking lifted weights, and it made the day go by really fast, and I had an awesome time.
Yeah, you came off that platform and actually looked like you were pretty happy. Like, when you came out of that squat, and you're like looking around. It took you a second, but then when you did, you're like, that guy's genuinely pretty dang happy about what, I mean, obviously, but a lot of people
Yeah.
wouldn't come out from underneath a 1,100-pound squat and be like, oh yeah, I'm pretty happy about this. But it's just like, you were in your element. You could kind of tell, like, now I'm pretty happy, like probably happy a little bit that it's over, but pretty happy
Yeah,
as well that you did it.
getting through it. And then, you know, like my parents come to all my meets, and they've been at all the WPO stuff. They've always been really supportive of me. I think that they're really proud of like the shit that I overcame, like with the drugs and stuff early on in my life. And they definitely, like, having them there is really cool. And then obviously like my wife being there, and having, I had let's see, so Josh, Sean, Corey, Peaches, Spandy. But yeah, so I had 5 guys plus my wife there that traveled all the way to Florida, like, just to help me. And so being able to perform and do well was really cool. And then also seeing these guys who are like, they're not elite lifters, they're working their way towards that, but none of them are there yet. But to have them act like professionals in the warm-up room and help people and all that stuff, I took a lot of pride in that and was very happy. You know, we're a close-knit group. Me and my guys, like every time we have a free squat night where everybody's squatting in suits and stuff, as soon as the last person takes their last squat, everybody gets a hug. Everybody hugs everybody. Like, I tell my guys I love them all the time, because it's sort of like a tribal thing where, like, you got to know that your guys have your back and they're willing to potentially get hurt to save you from getting fucking killed, because these weights are so big. It's like you have to be willing to tweak your bicep to make sure that I don't get cut in half. And so, and they do everything I ask them to do. And so that added to like the fun part of it too, because it's like for all of them except for Josh, it was their first time seeing a WPO. So it was the first time they've seen me squat weights, they've seen me bench weights, but they've never seen a 900-pound bench before. So, you know, seeing Hoff do his thing and being around, and I think also seeing me like be able to interact with all these different guys who I've known for years, sort of showed them like kind of what's under the hood of being at the next level. And I just took I took a lot of pride in how my guys acted and were able to help on the day. So that's why, like, I was smiling the whole fucking day. Because it's like these guys are like, I didn't have to think about a fucking thing other than lifting weights. Like I was like, hey, can you run in the back, grab my bag of hot tamales and fucking my water, and like, you know, and they're running around, my knees get, everything's just like perfect. So I had 4 guys help me get my briefs off, and it was a really good day, man. Probably the most fun I've had at a WPO. Out of all of them, this was probably my favorite one.
Man, I can't wait till I have a pit crew for powerlifting. That's gonna be fucking sweet.
Mhm.
I just do it solo so far, so it's like I got to think about everything. Like I'm walking
Yeah.
off the platform, going, "How much do I need to add to the next attempt?"
Yeah, man. I honestly, like, I had a couple guys, you know, that didn't work out. I think if you're the guy, you know, and you're putting together a group, I tell people all the time, it's like, don't fucking, like, don't settle. I'm not willing to settle. Like, everybody in my group, you're not in my group if I wouldn't have you over for Christmas, bro. Like, I need to like you, and I need you to fucking listen and do things how I want them to be done, right? Like, if you want me to invest in you, I need you to invest in learning how to help me as well. And so I just, like, there are a couple guys, you know, 3 or 4 guys that came in and didn't work out. Nothing against them. They just didn't have what it took, or they pissed me off or whatever. And my guys now have like we have a very solid crew of guys who are 100% bought in. I trained alone for a while when they first started out, and I think that there's some value in that, like what you just said, right? Like, it's like you have to figure your shit out, and that gives you knowledge. Like, that gives you, you know, if you're a golfer and you just go out to a putting green by yourself with no coach, you're going to figure out a bunch of shit that works for you, you know? And doing that as a baseline sometimes I think really helps people when they already have like a foundational knowledge of what they might need. And it helps them kind of like be a little more cohesive when working with a group, because they're not sitting there completely like, I don't know what, you know, like, I don't know how I like my rack set, or I don't know how I like my knees wrapped or my handouts and all this stuff. But if you've been training by yourself and you've had to get fucking random guy in the gym to hand you out a bench, you get pretty good at telling people exactly what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know what you want. So when you are working with like your guys, you can say, this is the thing. This is how I want you to do it. And then they're able to replicate it because you can actually explain it to them.
Man, it's ironic you say all this because this prep was the first time I had side spots available when I was maxing out on squats. You want to talk about like a fucking luxury? Jesus Christ, that is so much better than having to bail or worry about the safeties being there or anything. Like, because I didn't know the bar was even going down. I was still pushing, and they grabbed it. And I watched the video. I'm like, did they grab that early? And I watched it and I go, no, I definitely went down. And I'm like, fuck, that would be nice all the time. So there's definitely, I think, a lot of value in having a crew of people to train with.
100%. And to that same point, like on Sundays we got a couple guys who like work and the family stuff, and I'm not a tyrant that way. Like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're in the fucking gym with us, dude. Like there's really very few excuses that I'm okay with. But Sundays it's secondary bench. Like I want my bench to be better. If you can't make it in and you can figure out a way to do your thing, that's fine. I don't really care. But every so often being able to go in by myself and just train alone, that's also nice to kind of break away, just put my headphones in and just kind of zone out and just do my thing. But overall, man, like I love the social aspects. One of my favorite parts of the sport is being around the guys and yucking it up and having, have all these memories, with my wife and being able to share those experiences and talk shit. And that's one of my most favorite parts of lifting weights is being in the gym on a Friday night, listening to fucking loud ass music, talking shit with the fellas and lifting weights. Like for me, that is my, I'm going to the bar tonight feeling. That is my like feel good party feel. Like it's like the guy like hanging out with the group and, building these relationships around something that we're all very passionate about is like, I love that. That's like being a part of a tribe is something that I really, really enjoy.
When did you kind of take it back a little bit further? When did you kind of like start to figure out, hey man, like I could be pretty good at this stuff? Like when did you kind of have that aha moment of like, I'm kind of going to get into this stuff and this is going to be kind of where I take the direction of my life here?
Yeah. So, it's weird because, are you guys like familiar with like my background? Like, I don't know how much, if you guys do any research for this or if you're aware of like the background stuff, but basically, just like brief, I played hockey my whole life. I was a goalie. I played for 13 years and I always partied and, like found myself with a pretty, pretty good little drug habit. I was a 147-pound opiate addict. Like, it wasn't heroin, it was oxys, but it's the same fucking thing. Like neither is better or worse. Like, I'd say my healthy fear of needles probably saved my life a little bit when it comes to that. But yeah, I was, kicked out of the house, homeless for a little bit. Best thing my parents ever did to me was tell me to get the fuck out of their house. Sort of when I cleaned up, I sort of found the gym again and just started going to kind of, I don't know, it was like a punishment almost. Just to like go and like just absolutely kick the dog shit out of myself. And then it kind of evolved from that until I got shown like what powerlifting was and kind of just built that way. And I'm an all-in type of person. So I'm an extreme guy. Like it's like, you're gonna get tattooed. Oh, cool. I'm gonna tattoo my whole fucking head. Like gonna stretch my ears. I'm gonna stretch them bigger than anybody. Like, I'm gonna do the like, oh, you're into drugs, cool. I'm gonna do the most amount of drugs. Like all that. Like I'm an extreme guy. So I found out about powerlifting. I did a meet. I sort of when I was getting into it, it was like 2013, 14. The big guys online were like, Mark Bell had left Westside at that point. Brandon Lilly, Ben Rice, Dan Green, these sort of guys. And I was like, oh, I kind of want to I don't know, like make a YouTube channel or fucking whatever. And I kind of started fucking around with social media stuff. And a guy reached out to me. He saw me at a meet, reached out, said, you know, if you ever want to come train. So I went, and then I interned there, got a job. And then I was working in a West Side certified gym, did one raw meet with him, two raw meets with him. And then we went out to West Side, and he had met Louis before we went out there. He was a West Side certified gym at the time. They still had that. So we went out there. I got in a canvas. The first time I got in a canvas, I squatted 705. And my best raw squat at the time was 655. So I was like, oh, I'm never fucking squatting raw again. Like, fuck this. So so I got really excited, and then I remember on the ride back to the hotel from West Side, I looked at the guy I was with, and I was just like, I'm gonna squat 1,000 pounds, just so you know. Like, I'm gonna do that. And I had a pretty quick first meet I squatted 755, second meet 805, third meet 850, knee injury, knee surgery, came back, squatted 905, total 2100. And then 3 months after I squatted 905, I squatted 1,000. So I went from 900 to 1075 in 18 months. And my bench obviously struggled quite a bit. My deadlift, because of the squat was so good, so big, that it was hard to make my deadlift grow at the same time. But I guess when I was like, oh shit, I could like do this, was like, I don't know. I've always had, I didn't really have like a moment. It was more like I've always kind of had this belief in myself where it was like, I might not be, I was never like, I'm going to be the best. It was more like, I'm going to be my best. And my best ended up being like pretty okay. So, I'm just kind of
pretty okay. He says pretty okay.
I think like one of the big ones for me, like one of the big moments was I had squatted 1030. The board for 242s at Westside was 1060. It was Greg Penora's. And I was supposed to do a bench only meet. And on the Monday of that week, I maxed a Cambridge bar to a box. I think I squatted like 8 something. And then I like deloaded on Wednesday because I was supposed to do the bench only meet. And then we weigh in on Friday. I weighed in on Friday, and I was like, dude, I feel good. Like, fuck this. Like, I'm going to do full power. So I show up to the meet. I didn't tell Louis. I show up to the meet. He sees me putting on my briefs, and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I was like, hey man, like you said to me, we don't borrow strength around here. Like, we're strong all the fucking time. So I'm strong, and I'm taking the board today. And he was like, fuck yeah, motherfucker. Like, man, like, he loved that. So I opened with 980 and jumped straight to 1065 and got it. And that moment was sick because that was like what I went out there for. You know what I mean? Like, I moved out to Ohio in a Prius. Everything I could fit into a Prius was $600 to my fucking name. I lived on a couch, and I moved out there in September. And by November, I had my own apartment. My wife she wasn't my wife at the time, but had moved out. And by December, I had squatted 1,000, and by fucking March, I had squatted 1065. So it wasn't one moment. It was just I just willing to do whatever. Like, I didn't give a fuck. Like, as soon as I got invited to Westside, I was just like, fuck it, I'm out. Like, I'll see you. Like, I'm gonna do this meet, and then in 6 weeks, I'm moving out there. I had nowhere to live. Like, I lived on this dude's couch. Like, he had a spare room, so I lived in a spare room, and yeah, like, it was just I was just always willing to kind of like do whatever. And to me, I was kind of delaying growing up. Like, I was 30 at the time, and I didn't have any kids or anything, and I wasn't even on a lease somewhere. Like, I was just able to just be like, I'm fucking out. So, and honestly, I thought in my mind, I was like, man, if I can just stretch this $600 long enough to do something cool out here, and then I'll end up back in New Hampshire with my tail between my legs, but I'll be able to do something cool out here. And then, we end up being out there for 6 years. So, and did some really cool shit while I was out there and met some really fucking awesome people that I still consider some of my best friends. So, yeah, man, like there wasn't really a moment. It was more like an unwavering, I had people throughout the journey that believed in me, and that helped me have like this, just like, I will do whatever the fuck I want. I will, like, any fucking thing that you tell me. Like I said it on I was on Table Talk, and I said it on there, it's like, you're not gonna tell me what my fucking capacity is, because I don't feel like I have one. So I'm just gonna like, I just, till the wheels fall off and every single fucking pound is gonna get squeezed out of my body. So yeah, it wasn't really a moment. It was a bunch of different things. And still to this day, like, I don't consider myself like some great lifter. I just consider myself like a guy who has worked really hard and kind of chipped away, where I kind of like sneak up, kind of like fake it till you make it. You know what I mean? Like Lou brought me to Westside to push 2 guys in their squat, and that's it. He didn't think I was going to do a fucking thing. And the beauty of Lou is, when I left, or when he kicked me out, he said I'd never total more than 23:55. And my first meet after I left, I totaled 23:64. And 2 meets later, I totaled 2,500. And to me, it was like, it's a win-win for Lou, right? Because if I fail, I told you. Yep. What's he say in the movies? Like, they walk right out of here, they walk right into quicksand. And it's like, and so, and so he wins there. But at the same time, he can, him saying that to me kind of lit a fire under my ass a little bit. It's like, no, fuck you, dude. You're not going to tell me what the fuck I can do. And then he wins there, because again, like, his legacy grows because a lot of the shit I learned came from him. And like, I went through a really long phase where I was very angry with Lou, and I had a lot of like negative feelings about Westside and some of the people there. But now I look at it in a way of just, I'm grateful for those times, and me and Lou butted heads a lot, but I mean, fuck, he got as much as he could out of me, and that's his MO. And I respect that he just like didn't give a fuck about, like, he doesn't care. He never cared about you, really. He just cared about what you were able to do, and I respect that, because he never fucking wavered. He didn't even know that like Raw was a big deal. He didn't give a fuck. He didn't care. Like, he had no idea how big or how small Westside was. He had no fucking idea, because he did not care, because all he cared was, and it makes it very hard to have a relationship with somebody like that, especially when you're a type A type of dude like me. But I'm grateful for the time that I had there. It propelled my career. It put, my brand, and, it put me kind of on the map a little bit, where people started paying attention. And like, outside of all of those things, like, taught me how to lift weights, taught me how to be fucking like fearless under a barbell, and really taught me the intricacies of the method of like conjugate, and like what he would do, and how a lot of it's just experimentation. And you see guys come in, you see guys leave, what works, what doesn't work. And that really helped me when it comes to like building the culture of our own gym now. You take the good, you leave the bad. What I didn't like, I left there. What I loved, I kept with me. And Westside will always have I still have people message me, be like, you left Westside? Like, yeah, motherfucker. Like, I was living in Ohio. I was not at Westside longer than I was at Westside. So it's fucking crazy, but like, I still have that loose association. And I used to hate it, and I used to try to like not talk about Westside but I'm really proud of what I did there, man. It's fucking hard to lift weights there. It's not easy. It's fucking hard. And I'm really proud of what for the experiences that I had. Like, dude, there's something about like getting in the car on a fucking Thursday with a bunch of guys from there and driving to Tennessee to do some like wild SPF meet in a fucking hotel. And it's just like, it's like you're on permanent fucking like camp, like summer camp. Like it's just a bunch of fucking big, fat, jacked, smelly dudes like in a truck, like smoking cigarettes and fucking going to the hotel bar or whatever and seeing all these people and so I'm really grateful for those times. And I really, as I've gotten further separated from the negative of being kicked out twice, man, it sucks. But you get further away from it and you can accept the bad as just part of everything that happened. And I'm happy with all of it,
Now, going into the equipped lifting thing, I don't know shit about it.
Okay.
And like, it seems like you and Laura, you put on the gear and all of a sudden your squats just fucking skyrocketed. So like, how much do you think the equipment obviously is its own skill, but how much does it contribute to the total itself? Or like, how much of a gain do you think you get out of the equipment usually if you're really good with it?
Yeah, I think for me, like if I had to guess right now, I'm probably like between a 750 and 850 squatter raw, if I had to guess, like something like that. Um, I don't really have any like desire to find out. But yeah, like right around there, it depends. It's different for everybody. Like I know guys who get like, there's someone like me who, my best floor press is 525. My best shirted bench is 639. So I'm getting like, 110 pounds, 115 pounds out of a shirt. But I know other guys who benched 700 and their best fucking raw bench is 340.
Do you think that has to do with like biomechanics and stuff? So like more people are probably built differently for the equipment and makes it
Yeah.
easier for them to transition?
Yeah. How you're built, how the gear fits, the cut of it, your training. There's so much that goes into it, bro, because it's like, so as a raw lifter, if you wanted to work your squat technique, right? You just put on 50% and you can do reps all fucking day. It's not going to fuck your training up. You can just work your technique, right? How am I going to work my technique in a bench shirt that takes 85% of my max to touch? Like
Right.
you have to be smart about where you put it. So it adds an element to it. What I really like about equipped lifting is the skill component. You're not going to see many raw guys like miss their first squat, miss their second, and then blow up their third. Right.
Right.
But there's something to me that's cool about the gear where it's like it adds in. Maybe I'm not the strongest guy. Like, dude, like I've beat guys that are way stronger than me. There's a handful of guys who like pound for pound, like raw, kick my fucking ass all over town. And I consistently whoop their ass at beats. Right. And then there are other guys who I outbench them by 100 pounds raw and they smack the shit out of me in the gear because they're just better at the gear. And so I really like that part because it's like, as you get a little older, it's not necessarily like I got to get stronger. It's like I got to stay in one piece and get more technically sound. It's very similar to like that, golf is a great way to look at it. Like you want to further drive. It's like you don't necessarily have to swing the club harder. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily getting stronger to put more weight on. It's like sometimes it's just a technical aspect. Or like pole vault, same thing. It's like it's more of a technical thing to make you jump to the next level than it is a strength or explosive thing. So yeah, all that to be said, like I think it varies from person to person. Like I know guys who get a shit ton out of their deadlift suit. I don't really get a lot out of mine, probably 50 pounds. And then like my bench, like I don't know, at this meet, bench 606, I probably got 200 pounds out of my fucking bench. Sure, you know what I mean? Like something like that. And my suit, yeah, probably, 300 pounds, something like that. But it's different for everybody. And that's the funnest part to me is like, or one of the funnest parts, like figuring out how to train around the fact that like we can't just like get in our gear and do full dick movements all the time. It's just you can't do it. And you can't do like your SBD days, like you can't really do that in gear. It's too much to do in one day of training.
Right.
So yeah, overall, I just think that it's like really fun because of the technique aspect. It just adds another layer.
Right. Now, what's the rule for parallel on squats? Because in the suit, it always looks different than the raw squat would, right? Because like in raw, it's always the knee has to be below the hip joint. So what is the rule in the suits? Because I'm assuming you probably can't get as low because those things are so fucking tight, right?
Yeah. So the thing that people really get confused on here is that the word parallel is not found in a single rule book.
Okay.
Parallel is like parallel to what?
Right.
Parallel to the ground,
Right.
parallel to the ceiling. Like what are we parallel to?
Right.
So the hard part with gear is like, kind of finding where that hip crease is. The other thing that happens is because there's so much compression on the hip, your quad ends up getting kind of pushed forward. So you get like this really big quad sweep, especially if you got big legs like I do. So people start looking at the top of your quad. And it's like, well, the top of my quad is 2 inches higher than the top of my knee.
Right.
So you have to look at like the knee to the hip. And I think when you look at like raw guys who are in like ollie shoes, in the bottom of their squat, they're so compressed that you think they're fucking buried. You're like,
Right.
oh, they're in the fucking pocket, dude. Like they're, and if you look at it from the side, it's like they're literally directly at depth. They're because the further your knees go forward, the lower your knee is to the ground. So the further your butt has to come down.
Right.
And with us, we're kind of trying to stay as vertical as we can with our shins so we don't put any pressure on our knees. So the rule is the same. I think that like the depth thing, like it's like kind of like obscenity, right? Like you can't put a definition on it, but you know when you see it.
Mhm.
And I think that like front cameras are not great.
Right.
The other thing too is that like, so let me see if I can do this on camera. So if this is the front foot of the monolift,
Mhm.
and this is the back foot of the monolift, right? And
Mhm.
the camera is filmed from slightly above, right? These
Right.
two are on the same plane.
Right.
The back side of the monolith looks higher.
Sure.
Where are your hips? Your hips are behind your knees.
Mhm.
So there's a weird thing with the perception of the video.
Mhm.
Honestly, dude, like I've had a few squats that got fucking decimated on the internet, like bad, bad. And two of them, like for sure, were not good depth. They were awful, right?
Mhm.
But that was kind of part of the culture, right? Like it's like, I don't know, man. You look at the fucking pauses on bench for raw guys back during like the raw unity meets and like that era, like 2014, 15, some pretty fast press commands on those fucking benches,
Yep.
right? To press. It's like, okay, like they timed that perfectly, maybe, like who knows, right? So, and that was just the culture of the lifting then. And I
Mhm.
think that the raw judging is getting a little tighter now. But like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm not looking at Dan Green's benches and being like, "Dude, I should have paused that for longer. That's trash." Like, I don't care. That's part of what the culture was, right? It's like you're not looking at like old football footage and seeing some big hit on a quarterback and being like, that's interference. That's fucking bullshit. Like, that's just what the culture was then, right? So for me, it's like, yeah, the 2008 to 2014, 15, 16, like, yeah, like there were some high multiply squats and fucking whatever, dude. Like, like,
Right.
fuck it. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, it's about your body of work, right? So I look at I have 25, it's either 24 or 25 in competition 4-digit squats. I would say I have significantly more squats that I'm proud of the depth than others. But something you will never see me do is turn down one of my own lifts. That is some fucking weird shit. Like, hell no, absolutely not. No, like, in my life. Somebody scored on me and I pulled the puck out before the ref saw it. I wasn't going to say like, oh, it was a goal. No, it was not a goal because you didn't see it happen. So fuck it. So I'm not going to come out from under a squat, look at the video and be like, you know what? Actually, I don't think it's fair that I got that squat. Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to turn it down, but I hold myself to a high standard. Like, I mean, you look at my training videos, like my box for my box squats is fucking in there. Like I squat deep in training. And then when I go to a meet, I squat to where the judges ask me to squat to. So it's not my responsibility to make sure the judges call me to a depth that I find acceptable. You know, like, dude, you want to talk about depth in squats? Go and look at all of the WPO meets from fucking probably like 2000, like 2020, 2019 to now. Like, those are some deep fucking multiply squats, man. Like, they held us to a very, very hard standard. And like, fine, like, that's perfect. Like, now when I squatted a single ply world record in 2022, I believe, 2021. And like, I told my guy, like, you know, I want to be in there. Like, call me to depth that is unquestionable. Because I wanted to make sure that, like, if I was going to take a world record, I wanted it to be something that I could beat my chest about. And you look at that video and it's fucking buried. So I feel good about it, you know? But yeah, you can sit and fight about depth and rules and fucking bench arches and sumo deadlifts and fucking whatever and every other fucking stupid thing that people want to cry about. Like,
it's cheating. Sumo's cheating.
Sumo's cheating. Yeah, somehow it's sumo cheating. All I have to say about like the depth thing is, and I'm kind of like close it out with this, is just like, okay, how many billions of dollars does the NFL make? Billion, just so much crazy money, right? They have high def fucking cameras flying down the middle of the fucking thing and a million different angles and all this stuff, and they can't figure out what a legal hit is. You think some fucking guy who did a 2-hour judges seminar is going to be able to decipher a ½ inch when you've got 2 inches of fucking canvas on? Like, no, like the way that I'm a certified judge for the APF, and the way I look at it is like, if I have to think about it, it goes to the lifter. So if I look at it and I go, white light. Benefit goes to the lifter. They're the people who put money into the sport. They're the people who are participating in the sport. Benefit goes to the lifter. I don't give lifts away. If it's high, it's high. But if I have to like, it's good. I might tell him after that, like, if I have to go like that, I'll tell him, like, if it's, you know, a cunt hair higher than that, you're getting a red light. But like, to me, it's like 99.9 repeat percent of the people who talk shit are online, have private profiles, and squat 200 pounds.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, to me, it's just like, okay, bro, like, and most of the time, I don't get a lot of shit talkers at this point. But most of the time now, I either ignore them, block them, or I'll comment and I'll be like, say one of two things. I'll say, hey man, like, you seem like you're having a really hard day, and I'm sorry that you're having such a hard day. So if you ever need anybody to talk to, please let me know. Or I will say, hey man, I'm just new at this. If you could give me some pointers on how to be better, that'd be great too. And 9 times out of 10, they completely flip, because those dudes just want you to respond to them. They don't care what you say. They want you to respond. If you respond with fuck you, they're going to come back with fuck you energy. If you respond with, hey man, like, you must be having a tough time in your life if you're talking shit to a stranger you've never met. So I hope you find the help that you need. And that usually shuts them up pretty quick as well. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't hear much of it. And honestly, like, fuck them. Like, like all the people that I like, if I care about your your perspective or your thoughts on my lifts, you're a good lifter, and everybody else can fuck off. Like, I don't know. If you've never put on a canvas before, I really don't care about your opinion when it because the number one thing that you will never catch me doing is commenting on a stranger's video talking shit. Like, I don't like, you don't see 400-meter sprinters commenting on 100-meter sprinters shouldn't be like pussy. Like, it's like, why? Like, it's weird. Like, I used to get really into that stuff, and now I just like, man, I just turned 38, man. I'm too old to be going back and forth with 15-year-olds about my hip crease.
It's always funny
No,
that they
that's
want
like
to they want to talk crap on the people that can literally probably break them in half. They're under 1,100 pounds of weight, and you're gonna talk crap on someone just because they missed like what you were talking, like minuscule depth. It's like, yeah, probably should just shut up. But you know, anyway, what were you gonna say, Alex?
Well, it's like the idiot said, blame it on. They're like, oh, it's the equipment that does it. I'm like, yeah, it's the fucking equipment that allows them to handle all the weight. Like Jimmy Kolb did that 1,400-pound bench press, and like, oh, it's the shirt. And I'm like, even if the shirt somehow magically made him bench 700 more pounds, for example, that's a lot of fucking weight above your throat. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
I used some weight releasers in this prep, and I was like, I could probably unrack this weight. It was only like 360. It was pathetic. And I went to unrack it, and I'm like, oh, motherfucker, that was really hard. I was like, holy shit, what happened here? I was like, I guess there is a limit to these things, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that there's something to be said for just like the balls to get under big weights. I think that that's the fun part, right? Like, to me, it's like I want to lift weights that are so big that make people shit their pants. Like that, like I want people to be like, what the fuck is that? You know, like I don't know anything about racing cars. Like, I don't know anything about racing cars. But if I went to a car race, I would want to watch the fastest cars.
Right.
I wouldn't want to watch the cars that were closest to running. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see the craziest shit possible. And dude, just to be very clear, like I respect raw lifting. Like raw lifting, especially like the females now, is fucking insane. Absolutely fucking insane. And I respect the fuck out of it. And honestly, a lot of the like chirping back and forth, it used to be like some of the high level guys would go and get into it. Most of the guys who lift raw at a high level, like, don't give a shit about what we're doing over here because they've realized that like you got guys like Dan Bell who have done both. And it's like, if the guy with the biggest total ever in your sport does the other sport and only puts whatever 150 pounds on his total, then that should tell you something. It's actually pretty hard. And honestly, I think a lot of them realize, like, because people used to say like, oh man, like imagine if Eric Lillibridge put on gear. It's like, imagine if he did. I don't know. Like, it's not going to magically put 600 pounds on his total. You know, and I think people realize that when Dan did that, I thought that was really cool because it shed light on like how difficult this shit is.
Right.
So
if you ever do go watch a car race, go to the NHRA races in New Hampshire, and you want to talk about the equivalent of powerlifting in a fucking machine form, it's 10,000 horsepower in 3 seconds down a quarter mile.
sick.
Like, that's what it is. And so, like, kind of to tail on that, how do you get in the mindset to get under those big weights? Like, I don't think people understand, like, you're talking about it being mental. Like, yeah, you have to go to a different place. Like, you can see it in Westside versus the World. Hoff is a different person when he steps off the platform than when he normally is, right? And he even says, he's like, yeah, sometimes people get in my way and I got to push them because that's just, he's like, it's not me.
Yeah. So I think that a lot of it is fight or flight. And I think also, like, for me, I don't know how old you guys are, but when Brandon Lilly blew his knees off with that squat in like the kind of early 2010s, I remember seeing that, and I couldn't get it out of my head. It was fucking me up. I couldn't get it out of my head. And so I just started saying to myself, every time I would go to unrack a weight, I would just be like, this is going to blow my knees off. I would just say it in my head every fucking time. And I'm not like trying to compare myself to a warrior or a fucking Viking or whatever, but some of the things that, you know, like, so samurais used to imagine, I forget what it's called, but it's like they would, the night before a battle, they would imagine being like completely dismembered and like, you know, disemboweled and fucked up. Because once you accept like that it's a possibility that you could fuck yourself up, then you can just focus on the task at hand. So I don't really get up. I mean, you got to get up for it. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things where it's just like, I'm going to address 1,100 pounds the same way that I address 800 pounds, the same way I address 500 pounds. I used to go to like this, try to get myself to this like dark place or whatever. Usually get my knees wrapped, stand up, get my straps. The walk from that to the bar, like I'm a psycho. Like I just feel fucking crazy, And then as soon as I'll put my hand on the bar, put my other hand, and I usually like put my forehead on the bar and just let out like a little like, boom, and then take a deep breath, and then I'm calm and I just try to execute. I try not to go too crazy. I used to just be a fucking psycho, like just like screaming the whole time and everything. And now I just sort of try to address it in a way where very calm and I try to not let the weight or the number beat me. That's like kind of like where I'm at with it. I had a pretty scary squat fail last year. We were doing safety squat bar, no hands, with like 160 and chain, or it might have been 200 and chain. I had like 675. We were trying to do a double. So I got the first one, I got my hands up, got the first one, stood up, went for the second one, shifted forward, got on the box. And then when I went to stand up, I put my hands down for some reason on my legs and pushed my knees forward. And I just fell on the box. And I thought I couldn't feel my legs. I thought I broke my back. I was like, something bad just happened to me, right? So I never posted the whole video because I'm like kind of dazed and I'm like reaching for the monolift and I'm like, help, like, like so they pick me up, put me in the hooks, and I sit down and everyone's kind of like, whoa, like, and I'm like, I got my eyes closed and I'm just like, all right, like, thank you guys, but everybody needs to get the fuck away from me. Like, just get away from me. So they all got away from me, and my body kind of had like some sort of reaction where I started kind of like kibbying and having like kind of these shakes or whatever. And I'm like, okay, like I stand up and I'm like kind of checking myself. Like I'm like, okay, like everything seems to be in order. And I'm like, all right, I'm done for the night. Like I'm not taking another one. And I'm standing there and I started to feel a little better. I looked at one of my guys and I'm like, I think I'm just going to take like 5 plates just to like do something. And Val was like, I was like, you think, you think I should take it again? Like, you think I should just fucking take it again? And Val looked at me. Val's my wife, and she goes, "If Dave was here, you'd take it again." And I was like, "Fucking give it." so took it again and got it. And it's like those scary moments. You learn to love those, right? So something I've been saying recently is like, you don't drive a motorcycle because it's safe. Like you drive a motorcycle because it's wild, it's fun, it's like it's a little crazy, it's dangerous. Like not going on not bungee jumping because it's a safe, calm activity. Like I'm doing it because it's fucking wild, right? And same thing with lifting weights. Like I don't want to lift weights that aren't scary. I only want scary weights all the time, every time. So once you get yourself in that mindset where it's like, yeah, it should be fucking scary. Like I don't know, if the weights aren't scary, they're not big enough. They should make you feel a little uneasy, and that uneasiness and that anxiousness can kind of put you in a position where you have to. It's like, what is it? Survive or die, right? Like I don't know. Like every time you touch a bigger weight, it's scary. And then there's a certain level of weights that you have handled before that are scary every time. Like to me, like 1,000 pounds isn't really scary anymore. I've handled it so many times, but it's big enough to fuck me up and end my career. So you have to find this balance of like, I got to get up. It's kind of like, it's kind of like the last warm-up deadlift in a meet. Your last warm-up is like, it's enough that you have to get up for it, or it's going to be really hard, but you don't want to blow your load on it either. So you have to find this like respect of the weight with sort of going over the top. And yeah, finding that like that balance is fun for me. I went through a little story. So I went through a little bit. I tweaked my knee in 2018 going into 2018 or 19 going into the WPO that was on ESPN. I tweaked my knee with like 11:15. If you saw the video, it wouldn't even look like I got hurt. Like it was just looked like I missed it and whatever. And so over the course of 8 weeks, I lost a full inch of circumference in my left leg. So I had done some like nerve damage or something. I couldn't figure it out. It's like to the point where like I would take my briefs off. My briefs would get stuck on my right leg and they would slide right off of my left leg because it's never fully come back. I squatted 1037 at that meet. Like shifting into my other leg. But it's like another one. It's just another one of those situations where you had to like continuously just keep showing up, even though it was like, it was scary and it was this and it was that, right? So after that meet, every time I would go to free squat, I got through the meet, but every time I would go to free squat after that, I'd shut it down at like 1070, 1080. And I'd be like, that's good for tonight. That's good for tonight. And then I had this moment where I was like, you're fucking pussy. Like, what are you like this? Don't be like this. Like, no, it's supposed to be scary. Like like, that's why you do this shit. Like like you don't do this to be safe. You do this because it's crazy. And so we had a free squat night and I just started like, I walked in the door and I was just like, I'm going to go 10, 1050, 1090, 1115, 10, 1050. And I just kept saying it out loud. So when I would come out from under a weight, there was no, what are you going to take next? Everybody in the room, I had said it. And that was when I was still in Ohio, training with night crew and stuff. And like, you say something, you're going to fucking do it. So I forced myself into this situation where I had to do it because I talked all this shit and said I was going to. And it's like, yeah, it should be fucking scary. And I smashed, I think it was 11:25. I smashed it. But I had to like remind myself where you kind of lose your way, where it's like, this isn't about dipping your fucking toe in the water. That's not what this is about. That's not what this has ever been about for me. This is about going in fucking head first and trying to get as close to the bottom of the pool without fucking cracking your skull. You know what I mean? Like I want to be handling huge weights. So, yeah, mindset with that sort of stuff is just, it's scary, but like it should be. I want it to be. Like it's like getting out of a training session or a meet and being like, whoo, I feel like I got away with one there. Like it's like driving home in a snowstorm. You get home and you're like, fucking don't know how that happened. Like, don't know how we got here. But yeah, and I really enjoy that. And as I've gotten a little older, you learn when to pull that trigger and when not to. You can't just be a total psycho all the time, because that's actually easier, right? Like it's easier to be a psycho all the time. It's hard to like pick and choose those moments. It's like when you're fighting, if you have an argument with your girl or your wife or whatever, and you're like, well, fine, I'll never fucking say it again. It's like, that's a cop out. Like that's, you know what I'm saying? It's easy to say, well, fine, I'll never say it again. It's like, no, the hard part is finding the balance, right? So finding the balance between knowing when you have to take the big weight that's scary and knowing like the difference between being smart and being a pussy. And the difference. You know it. You know when you're just being like, you're letting the bitch assness creep in. And like you have to be like, nope, I have to take this. And then also being confident enough going into this meet. I floor press 465 10 days out from this last meet. My best is 525. I obliterated 465. It was fine. But it's like, I don't need to take another one. This would be a very stupid time to finish tearing my tricep and breaking my elbow. We're 10 days out. I just need to get to the meet, right? That was not the fucking time to swing my dick, right? And learning that is something that helps with longevity, which as you get older in the sport, you realize that's the fucking game, dude. That is the game, is how long can I stay in this? Because it's like, if you put 100 pounds on your total a year, but you only lift for 2 years, and I put 25 on my total every year and I lift for 10, at the end of the day, we're going to look at open powerlifting and my total is going to be bigger than yours. So trying to figure out how to get there, it's like you're going to put your, I mean, Donnie totaled 3,000 for the first time, was like 46 or 47 years old. Chuck squatted 1147 at, or 1175 at like 46. Like you just got to stay in for as long as possible. And like I said, I'm 38 right now. So it's like, to stay in this another 10 years or stay in this another 8 years or whatever, like I just got to be smart. But being smart doesn't give you the excuse to not do the scary shit.
So Alex mentioned before we came on, he was like, just think about all those West Side guys that aren't even lifting anymore, or guys that are just not in the game anymore, or that'll put a big total up, kind of like what you said, and then like 2 years later, they're not even relevant anymore. They're not even in the game. They're not powerlifting. They don't even lift at all, maybe because they're so burnt out because they went so hard so fast. So what's kind of the key to your recovery and kind of keeping yourself in the game, and kind of how do you manage your recovery aspect of getting from meet to meet or getting from training session to training session?
Yeah. So I would say that I'm terrible at sleep. That's something that I need to work on. Like sleeping and eating, I'm awful at. I fucking hate eating. I hate it. I wish I never. I love this week. This week right now, the first week after a meet, where I'm just like, I'm not hungry. I'm not going to eat. Fuck it. And I give myself 1 week to do that. Like, I don't care what my protein intake is. If I want a cheese quesadilla and a fucking chocolate milk, that's what I'm going to get. I don't care. But I do, yeah, I would say like, I'm a big, like mobility, foam roll, like different modalities with that, whether it's, like I said, like foam rolling or just like banded work to kind of stay in one piece. I have a whole like, for upper body and lower body, I have 2 different like warm-ups, and some of the stuff kind of crosses over. Food obviously is huge. And then like just different supplements as far as like, like I take vitamin D, I take calcium, I take ZMAs, and then obviously like the other like fun supplements like that plays a role in it too. Like it's just part of the game, and so and as far as that's concerned, I usually don't get into it too much. Just I think people pull the trigger too early on that, and they think that the guys at the highest level are on way more than they are. So
Thank you for saying that. No one ever fucking believes me when I try and tell them. Like, they're using very little compared to what you think. They're just that fucking disciplined and everything else that it's the cherry on top.
yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, like that's a very personal choice for people. So whenever someone asks me about that, if I should, if I shouldn't, I just tell them like, man, that's really none of my business. That's between you, yourself, your family, how what you're trying to do with it. And I basically try to avoid it, but I think that it's important because I think that it's unfair to sit here and say like, oh, I'm the fucking man. Like I'm bad at sleeping and I'm bad at eating, but I'm still sick at this because and it's like, no, there's other things that come into play. And I think that it's unfair when people who have a platform try to tell guys like, or girls like, oh, you can do this and you don't have to do any of that stuff. And it's like, well, that's not what you're fucking doing. So fuck you for saying that. Because it's unfair to people, there's like, influencers and whatever. But beyond that, I think the biggest thing with recovery too is you have to have a view of your training from a 10,000 foot view. So it's not what you did this Wednesday for bench press. It's what you did on Monday for deadlift and the full week before that, and then also what you're planning to do the following week. This isn't, I think, with conjugate and like Westside Protocol, people definitely, Louis loved to sit there and say stuff like, we didn't know what we were doing until oh my God. It's like, that's true. Like a lot of times we would just kind of go and kind of, you know, figure it out as we went along. Like, what are we going to do today? I don't know. We're going to do this. Fuck it. Let's go. But there were also a ton of fucking injuries there. And when you look at the guys who were able to keep it together for long periods of time, they were not deciding what they were doing at breakfast. They knew what they were doing. You know what I'm saying? Like they knew. And there's a lot of like discussion about like deload and when you need one and all this stuff. And I don't deload when I feel like I need it. I have deloads put into my system so that I don't fucking need it. So it's like, yeah, dude, every fourth Monday, I'm not deadlifting because I know every fourth Wednesday I'm getting in a bench shirt and every fourth Friday I'm putting on all my gear and squatting something. So, and that sets me up for success long term, right? Because I don't need to deadlift 4 Mondays out of the month because I'm box squatting 3 Fridays out of the month. And the box squat is going to build both my squat and my deadlift because I pull sumo. So that one Monday where I take off, I don't really take off. I just don't do any barbell work. I do just all machines and shit like that. That's not going to make my deadlift go backwards. All it's going to do is make my bench and my squat go up and my deadlift will stay where it is. And they can build that on a different day. And so I think that that is a big part because I look at a lot of guys. So one of my clients, Mark Godet, just did the American Pro Raw. And so this is probably the most tapped into raw lifting that I've been at, like the higher level in some time. And so I watched some of the big boys, you know, like in their training, and I watched them. And now I want to say, like, I respect these guys. I think the numbers that they handle are fucking crazy. They're insane. I do think, and this is going to sound like a boomer comment, but it's coming. I think if social media wasn't a thing, I think a lot of the high-end raw lifter guys would do a lot better in meets because there is a certain amount of dick swinging that goes on for the gram. And I know that's like an easy cop-out as like a slightly older guy to say like, oh, social media is this. And listen, dude, I think social media is fucking sick. Social media is how I bought my fucking house, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like I made my bag off of the internet. Like I love the internet. That's how I've done everything in my, you know, but they're like, you're not going to post something that's not sick. Like, no, like very few people are going to be like, here's my deload bench.
I'm that guy, unfortunately. I'm that fucking guy.
Dude,
I'll post it all.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But like, I definitely went through a phase like when I first came back out to New Hampshire where I felt like I had to show everybody that I was still like able to lift big weights and still do stuff, right? But I wasn't quite ready to do a meet. And then I was down in weight and I tore my pec and all this stuff because I was trying to do stuff to like prove something. Like, no, I can still lift weights even though I'm not in Ohio. I can do, and I got myself into some trouble doing that. I fucked myself up pretty good. And now it's like, yeah, I'll post something that's sick, that I believe is sick on the internet when I do it. But I just find myself doing less crazy things in the gym because you've only got so many times that you can get there, right? So it's like, yeah, what I did like 860 and 200 and chain on a camber bar for a double to a box. Like, yeah, I'm posting that. That's sick. That was dope. Like it almost killed me. That was awesome. But like, I don't need to post 5 plates and 200 and chain for triples. And if I do, it's just that's what I'm doing. So what I found with some of those pro raw guys is you watch them and their training is fucking insane. And you're like, yo, this dude is a monster. Like, what the fuck? And then they go to the meet and their gym total is 200 pounds bigger than their meet total. And it's like, well, wouldn't you rather reverse that? Like, I want to do as little in the gym as I can to get the biggest total. So I think that Instagram and sort of like training to impress people is different than training to be your best. Sort of the same way with like sports where it's like training to get playing time for a football team is different than training to get actually good at football, because 225 for reps on bench is really not going to help you be a better football player. What the fuck does that do? That does nothing. What it should be is like 315 for a 4-second tempo single with a 45-second rest in between each single, and see how many you can do, because that is more accurate to what a lineman's going to be doing, right? But you have to train for the other one because you got to impress the coach, and they're two separate things, right? So same thing with like 40-yard dash. When the fuck are you running 40 yards in football? A fucking 15-yard play is a highlight reel. Like, what
right.
the fuck? You don't need to do that. Like, so I think training for, and it's a delicate balance, especially if you're someone who does coach people, who does have a who has a voice and a platform. People look at you. You do want to make sure that you're posting stuff that shows people that you know how to lift weights and that you're doing cool stuff. But there is a balance there, and I think that can really fuck people's recovery up. You know what I mean? So honestly, I just stack clips. Like, if I don't feel like posting, I just stack them. And then when I'm like, I haven't posted anything in a while, here's a cool thing I did 6 weeks ago. And then I just post it because I have it in like the back burner for those moments where, like, I want to post something cool. I want to get some traction to the page or whatever. I'll post something that I did a little bit earlier in the training cycle. And that way I'm not adjusting my training for the show of social media.
I understand that. I've had people tell me, like, oh, your Instagram's so nice and curated. I go, I don't do anything else. This is what I do. I eat, I work out, and I write programs, basically, watch podcasts. That's my life.
I love that.
I can't help it. It is what it is. But no, I could totally see that being a problem. But yeah, I don't give a fuck who watches it. I do it because someone somewhere at some point in time is going to be doing the same thing and want to know how to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's going to be a thing. And I'll have at least, like, here's some videos of how I did it. And then, but with the raw lifters, do you think, or I guess this probably happens in equipped as well, do people have a hard time understanding how to peak correctly when you're talking about their gym totals being way bigger than their meet totals? Do you think the big problem is they're not understanding the actual recovery process that it takes? Because, like, I think it was the podcast with you and Hoff on Table Talk where he mentioned the adaptation can take 3 weeks to appear. Like,
yeah,
that's a big deal. I don't think most people realize is, like, if you did it 3 weeks ago, like, because I tapered down really early and everyone's like, why are you doing it so early? And I'm like, I give myself 3 weeks from my last heavy lift till the meet. And
I think that, honestly, dude, I think that the biggest problem with the raw culture and peaking is the cutting of weight. People don't understand how much that takes out of you and how fucking hard that is to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I've seen some dudes make some big fucking cuts, dude, and be very successful. And I've seen that same person do a smaller cut and it fucks them up. You never know how your body's going to respond. I mean, dude, I watched Coker fucking go from like 228 to 81. Like,
Jesus.
That's a big fucking cut, bro. Like, that's a nasty cut. And he did great. But then I've also watched him go to 98 and fucking have a really hard time. So I think that cutting kind of fucks people up. But also, there's a million different ways to do this. You know what I'm saying? Right now, the past 3 meets, I've had a lot of success with how I've peaked myself, right? I kind of like figured out. But I know that sometime in the near future, maybe not, hopefully not super near, but sometime in the future, that way that I peak myself is going to cease to work, right? And I'll go to a meet and I will shit down my leg, and it just is what it is, right? So I don't want to say people are incorrect in how they peak. I think that maybe, I guess I can't speak for like sort of like the mid-range lifters in the raw community, but I think in the multiply community, they get really hung up on the West Side stuff with the Circumax. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Book of Methods and all that stuff, but it's like they get obsessed with the Circumax thing. And it's like you have to do this like crazy fucking tons of bands, it just, regurgitates a 21-day delayed transformation phase, but they don't really know why they're doing it. And Circumax can get you really strong, but you also have to be very well practiced, because I can speak to conjugate more than I can speak to other training methodologies. So you could take a fighter or a gymnast or whatever, football player, literally 3-week wave speed box squats, fucking never touch a bench press to their chest, never deadlift off the floor, never do a straight weight movement, always have accommodating resistance, never work about all that stuff, right? Go straight book of methods, no powerlifting practice, just variations. And they are going to get strong as fuck. And they're going to get fast as fuck. And they're going to get jacked, right? And then they're going to go to the field and they're going to practice their sport and they're going to get good at their sport. And the strength becomes a tool in the toolbox, right? For us, our training happens to be very similar to our sport. So you have to figure out how to practice your sport within that training. And that's the hardest part, right? Because I think, early on, the gear was so rudimentary that, they said that they didn't even open their bench shirts out of the bag until they got to a meet. And that's just not the way it is anymore. The weights are so big, you have to practice, right? So trying to figure out how to add your practice in to, it's like, you can't let me see how I can say this. With a baseball player, right? I'm not going to have a baseball player bring a bat into the gym and hook the bat up to the cable machine and have him swing it, because I have no fucking idea if he's swinging the bat properly, because I'm not a fucking batting coach. I'm a strength coach, right? So you want to just get them strong, and then they practice their sport with the people that it matters. With powerlifting, you need to give them space in their training to practice their sport. So I've actually started adding in some RPE work into the conjugate template that I run. So I'll have, particularly with my raw guys, I don't really do it with the equipped people, but with the raw guys, you have 2 separate waves going at the same time. So I'll have a 3-week squat wave, 50, 55, 60% with the accommodating resistance to a box, just like you normally would. But their secondary is going to be 3x8, 3x6, 3x5 of a competition style free squat at an RPE 7, RPE 8, and RPE 8, 9, right? So you've got these 2 things waving at the same time simultaneously, like kind of in the background, you've got your RPE work, right? And since the reps are kind of higher, it's going to be fatiguing, but not super CNS fatiguing. However, it's going to give them a lot of fucking opportunity to practice under a bar. And they're going to be pre-fatigued from the box squats, right? The box squats are going to help build their work capacity as well as hip strength and whatnot for their deadlift. And then they're going to be able to practice their squat afterwards. Because if I tell you to do a 3x8 free squat at an RPE 7, the weight's going to be pretty negligible, right? Because the reps are so high. But it's going to give you a shit ton of practice, right? And what it is I can mitigate the amount of weight that's on your back. Because if I say do a 3x3 at RPE 8, you're going to be fucking busting your ass. That's a hard fucking workout, right? But a 3x8 at RPE 7, after the fatigue of doing fucking 8x3 on your box squats, the plate weight is going to be far less, but you're going to get a very similar stimulus. So I think that I don't think people peak incorrectly. I think that they don't know how to do the little nuanced things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
they're just beating an egg and throwing it in the pan, and they're not necessarily putting butter in the pan.
right.
You got these little things that can make it a lot easier on yourself, so that you're not going into a meet and going fuck, I've only free squatted 3 times in the past 4 months.
Do you find that the volume you're getting with that secondary wave is it sufficient for them to have a good coordination and technique practice?
100%.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is we'll do the 3-week wave, right? Boom, 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 boom. then that load Monday that I was talking about, drop the deload Monday so that they recover a little bit on that fourth week, take a heavy bench to their chest, either a reverse band or against a bunch of fucking chain, like a competition style one, right? And then they do, if they're in prep, they'll do a free squat, a competition opener, usually an opener and a second. And then we'll do another 3-week wave. And then they'll do an opener, second, third, deload, go to the meet.
Okay.
So they have a lot of practice as a secondary movement. And then they also have a lot of practice fresh with like a competition style squat. The thing that you got to be careful is with conjugate is when you do a secondary movement that is competition-esque. So if you're doing like that, like a secondary that's a free squat, or let's say you do a 3-board and then you do reps after full range. If your secondary movement is a barbell, you've got to take 1 or 2 accessories off the tail end of the workout because you're adding in another compound movement, and that's not really something that was sort of done in the inception of the conjugate method. Mm-hmm. So you're adding something in that is extra fatiguing and takes like a lot more neurologically. So you got to cut off a couple of things. Like I'm not going to have someone box squat, free squat, belt squat, goblet squat, leg extension, reverse hypers. Like, no, you're going to take the belt squat and the goblet squat out, have them do leg extensions, maybe a few lunges, reverse hypers, and be done.
Right.
You might do more single leg stuff as your accessories after, just to like almost body build and help get like movement in like the single joint stuff, where that's not going to be as fatiguing, but it's going to help put more tissue on you. And also it's just like more volume for your lower body or upper body, depending on what you're training.
When you're having a box squat, do you like to go to parallel or below parallel, or what kind of height do you like to use? Because like I personally have found for me, the below parallel, so like the 12-inch box, I get way more out of that than I did any of the other heights, it seems like, because my adductors and hips were so weak. So when I get really deep into it, because I have the mobility too, that seemed to give me the greatest return on investment that way.
Yeah, different strokes for different folks. Depends on who it is, right? So if I have someone who has maybe hip issues, I might actually have my raw guy go to a slightly, if I'm having him squat wide, I might have him go to just at depth, maybe an inch above. They found that like isometrics radiate, I believe it's like 5% up and down. Sure. So either side, right? I think it's 5%. Don't quote me.
Well, and they work within 15 degrees too.
That's,
so
yeah,
it'll affect the.
Yeah, so, but you still need practice getting in the hole, right? So if I have someone who I know their depth is good, they never struggle with depth on free squats, their box squats are going to be like right there, maybe a little above to save them, because realistically, your hips are not that low if you're pulling sumo. But I also had a guy, that Mark kid, the way that he described himself is he's like, I'm strong lifter, I'm not a good lifter. That's what he said, right? He's just like a bulldog. Mm-hmm. And so for him, I did not, when we first started working together, like we didn't do the West Side style sit way back box squats. I had him box squat with Olympic shoes on, his competition stance, below parallel, almost like a pause on the box. He did not rock. He did not release his hips. He just sat and stood and sat and stood, because I wanted to hammer the depth to him, because he would either cut something high or completely dunk it and get crushed. So we had to find like where he needed to be. We did that for maybe 6 weeks, pulled the box, and he was totally fine. He had like a 50-pound PR squat. So some people, it depends. Like my wife, incredible squatter. She's great. She's very technical, right? So I know with her, I can say, no, flat shoes, box squat, and like every 2 or 3 weeks, put her in her Ollie shoes and have her fucking free squat. And she's going to be just fine. But she had a problem with depth with her raw stuff when she switched back from being in gear. So we had to take her to a very fucking deep box. We had to do some pause work. It's like, it's funny because, you know, the raw culture that might be a little anti-conjugate, they'll be like, well, how are you supposed to get better at squatting? Like, if you suck at squatting, you need to squat. And it's like, absolutely. For sure. now part of this, that part, right? Let's focus on the part that you're the worst at, and let's use the tools that we have to do that. So like, yeah, bro, like, no, you for sure should practice free squatting. But if you suck at free squatting, doing more free squats not necessarily going to help you, because you're just going to do it bad over and over and over and over again.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So let's take it to a box that's lower, have you pause there so that you're more comfortable in the hole and you get more used to that sort of thing. I think that the box squatting, so it used to be like a big point of contention, right? Like it's like box squatting is for gear guys. It's not for this. It's that. And I think that's kind of gotten dropped because it's like Swede calls it like a mechanically similar movement.
Yep. MSM.
So it's close, right? It's like at the same time, I don't try to make, like I tell my raw guys, like if they're going wide and they're box squatting, like it's like don't try to make your box squat look like your free squat, right? Just do the box squat how I'm telling you to do it, right? Some people, if we're doing like the ollie shoe pause, like I'll say do it exactly how you would, right? But if we're doing like a traditional box squat, I tell them like, this is not, you don't try to make your tricep push downs look like a bench press.
Right.
Just do your tricep push downs to get better at bench pressing. And you kind of use the box squat in the same way. Same thing as board pressing or block pulls or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I noticed. So in this prep, I messed around with using, because I felt like I needed to do more singles, but I didn't want to take all the stress of doing singles all the time. So I used accommodating resistance with heavy accommodating resistance and less straight weight. Yep. And so technique wise, singles, like the routine got much better. But I noticed when I went back to the straight weight, when I started peaking, that because I'd been doing the box squats and is not as much quad dominant work, I was like, oh, fuck, my knees didn't like this at first. Like the first week I took 90% and like 95%. I was like, ooh, that sucks. But then by the time I maxed out again, had adapted again. But I noticed that I was like, shit, this box squat really transferred to my deadlift a lot, I think, but it did not really help me with my free squat as much. But
yeah, knowing where to put stuff is important, and doing the wrong exercises really good isn't going to get you anywhere.
Right.
Doing the right exercises where you need to, that's what's going to help. But even when you do that, it might take a little bit, dude. It's not having the patience like that to know, to be like, okay, like that didn't work the way that I thought it might. There's still value in it. You're not going to sit here and motherfuck the accommodating resistance, singles. It's just like, okay, I tried that. I didn't get the stimulus that I wanted from it. Okay, cool. I know that, but what happened, right? When you did that, so now you have that as a tool in the future. If you're looking for the stimulus that you did get from it, you know what to do.
Well, and if I get 500 next week, that's a 40-pound PR in comp. So I think it did something. So That was the cool part about the accommodating resistance is I got like 510 on the bar for that. So it's like my body's experienced some of that stress already. So like if I do get to 500, I'm going to have a little bit more confidence putting on my back because I'm like, I've at least felt this before.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I used to be against taking like your all-time PRs in the gym. And now I've kind of changed my view on that a little bit for that reason, like confidence and just being a little more sure of yourself. There's nothing wrong with wanting to feel good under weights, man. Like I don't know, like you don't want to go into a meet where you feel unconfident. And so if you can take something like that where you're like, oh, like I handled this much. Okay. Like, with my guys, I might look at them like, yo, that's, 60 pounds more than your opener at the top. You just did it for a double to a box. We should feel pretty fucking confident that you know what I mean? It's like I did I did 860 and 200 and chain for 2. It's like I'm opening with 1036, which is less than that is at the top. Okay, we're good. I'm not stressing it. You know what I mean? I know that I can do this. With the raw stuff, you got to be a little hesitant with the accommodating resistance because it lightens so much in the bottom. But if you're going to a box squat, the box makes it harder. So it kind of makes up for that lack of weight in the hole. So, I think that training and peaking I'm a wicked dork with this stuff, dude. Like, obviously, I've spent a long time kind of setting up my system and how I like it. And honestly, like how I train and how I train other different because I don't really give a fuck if my training is exciting to me. I'm here to lift weights on meet day. But I understand that some people really need to be excited in the gym. So I'll do stuff that I might not normally do, but I'll have them do that's sort of net neutral. It's not negative, might not help them a whole lot, but it's exciting for them. Cool. Have a good time. Be excited about training. You're young in your career, so that's going to make you train harder because you're excited. So there is a positive to it. It's not necessarily the movement itself. It's more about up here than anything else. Yeah, so I think it's really interesting talking to people that are like different ways of because we're basically tricking ourselves into thinking we can do something that we probably shouldn't be able to do.
Yeah,
So
you know
like,
what I did to prep on accident? I was fucking with accommodating resistance, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do bands and chains. So I went, I think it was green bands, so the west side greens, and then I did like 40 pounds of chain on each side, and I pulled, I think, like almost 80 pounds over my max at the top on accident because I miscalculated it. I thought it was like barely at my max at the top, and I
yep.
fucking got it, and then I calculated again, and the one I failed was like 600 at the top. I was like, oh motherfucker, I was way off on this. So like
Yeah.
not even knowing what you're doing can sometimes be, that little bit of motivation you need. Like just go do it.
Yeah, because you're not limited by like, oh fuck, this is this much or whatever. Yeah, I like that.
Nathan, you have any questions over there?
Not that I've been thinking. I've just been sitting back and listening because I'm just enjoying you guys talking about training. Like especially when you guys get into the nuances of training, I really enjoy that because I'm pretty new to the whole thing still. So just to hear you talk those things out is pretty cool for sure.
It's all about just consistency and knowing that like you're gonna fucking do stuff that doesn't work, and then you're gonna do stuff that does work, and you're gonna do stuff that you're not sure if it worked, and it's more about just like continuing to show up. And everything's conjugated, man. Like they try to say that certain things aren't conjugated, and it's like, I don't know, dude. Are you going in there and taking fucking competition singles every single day? No, you're not. Well, guess what? You're doing conjugate to some level. I had a quote that went kind of viral a few years ago where it's like, you're worried, like, so a cambered bar box squat 1 RM, right, has a higher level of specificity in my mind than a straight bar comp squat triple with a 4-second tempo, right? But people will argue, well, you're going to lose your skill of straight bar squats if you don't do that. And it's like, well, what's more important to me? Knowing how to strain under a heavy load, because that's what our sport is. So I think the quote was something like, you're scared that I'm going to forget how to squat. I'm scared you're going to forget how to strain against a heavy weight. Like, so to me, it gets kind of lost. It's like straight bars. Just because it's a straight bar doesn't mean that there's a high level of specificity. Is a fucking Zercher squat a high level of specificity because you do it with a fucking straight bar? Hell no. It's the furthest thing from anything we do, right? So it's like people get fucked up. It's like when it comes down to it, powerlifting is he who lifts the most weight fucking wins, right? The biggest weights, right? So straining under load is arguably the most important thing. So as long as you can do that and you're somewhat competent at squatting, benching, and deadlifting to a competition standard, I think that that's the most important thing. It's not the most important thing is not making sure you know how to squat with a straight bar to perfection with sets of 4 with a 4-second pause or whatever. Like, no, you need to be able to take a heavy fucking weight and lift it. And I think because there's so many resources out there about like, technique and form and all this stuff, which is all great. It's great. I think it's really important that stuff's out there, but people get kind of fucking lost in the sauce. And it's like, what are we doing? Are we trying to have, no, everyone should be striving to have good form and technique, but like, are we trying to have a 200-pound squat with 100% perfect form? Or are we trying to have a 300-pound squat with 94% perfect form? Like, I don't know. To me, I want the biggest weight possible. If you want to have as little breakdown as possible, but like, I don't no, I'm not here to, I'm here to lift the biggest weights I can and try to stay in position as good as I can. But like when it comes down to it, like I want 2 out of 3 white lights and a fucking big number.
When you teach people speed work or start off the bat, how do you find the best way to get them to understand that intent of being explosive and really trying to move the weight as fast as possible, even though it may feel heavy, to them without, because the bands I think do a really good job of the overspeed eccentrics and forcing you to really understand that if you learn to relax under them. But like with chains, it's so gradual sometimes, right? Or even the reverse method, that it's going to be a little bit more, it is now that, logical part of yourself where you have to try to drive with that intent.
Yeah, I tell people that with squats, 2 reps of speed work should be the same speed as 1 heavy single. And with bench, it's like 3 reps should equal 1 heavy press. What I found is that speed work, it's not a one size fits all thing, right? So for example, I have a kid, Josh, that I train with who's fast twitch. He like only is fast twitch. That's like, he is just fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he handles stuff way over his percentage on a regular basis because I'm not really interested in making him faster.
Right.
I'm interested in making him stronger. So we use, the speed work as just more like reps, right? Now I don't want him moving slow, but like you're going to do the prescribed weight that I give you. You're going to try and move them as fast as you can. But you're like, they're not going to move like typical speed work, right? Like same thing with me. Like I'll throw weights through the ceiling. I'm very fast, explosive squatter, especially. So I handle weights that are a little bigger because to me, it's more important to handle the heavier weights. And some people are just not going to get fast. So to give them weights that they can move fast is almost like trying to throw a wiffle ball through a glass window. They can throw it as fast as they can. It's not going to do anything, right? So I tell people, it's like, it sounds so stupid, but it's like, just like try harder to be fast. Like don't, because it's like with 35% in a band on bench, you can just float it. Like you can just kind of just go through the motions and just, whatever. It's like, no, you should be trying to fucking move that so fast that your back comes off the bench. Like you should be smashing that weight. And I tell people, I'm like, just try to be faster. And it sounds like stupid, but it's like that expression, like, have you ever tried trying harder? And it's like, that's a real thing because people don't really understand their capacity. It's like, are you actually going as fast as you can? Are you actually trying your hardest to move this weight? So I keep it kind of like, keep it simple. And I'm just like, go more, faster. Like I'll literally yell at my guys. If we're benching, we're doing speed, I'll just literally be like, faster. Like just, and
I do the same shit. I'm glad I'm on the right track.
No, yeah. Like, it's just like, no, dude, just be faster. Like, just
they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, fucking faster. They're like, but I'm like, no, faster.
Well, it's like, treat it like if you have especially like a raw guy, if you have a heavy bench and it comes down on your chest, are you going to try to float it off your chest? No, you're going to fucking jam it. Like, you're going to go as hard as you can. So try and do that with a weight that's lighter. And once it clicks for somebody, it's in there. They just need one day of like it making sense. But I don't have any like magical thing. I literally am just like, try to go faster, dude.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I know that's not as fast as you can go.
I just started helping some college kids this year. And it's like especially like on the bench press, it's like, no, you need to move that shit way faster. Like it needs to be like, throw it off of you.
Yeah. I also get my guys raw guys pause their first rep. Okay. If we're doing triples, they pause their first rep because it gives them practice of like that from that dead stop, like going. And then the second 2, you get the same speed of like the fast down, fast up. And then obviously my geared guys, I don't have them do that, but yeah, I make them pause the first one, and then any max effort movement for bench, my raw guys all pause, and it doesn't matter what it is. If it's a 3 board, they're pausing. Floor press, they're pausing. Reverse band, they're pausing. To work that skill, like we talked about earlier, because you have to get good at the actual sport that we're trying to do here.
Do you feel that when you incorporate the pause, it really emphasizes that whole pulling it to your chest thing instead of letting gravity push it to you? With like especially
Say that
newer
again.
people. So like when you have them emphasize the pause, do you feel like that helps with them understanding that you have to actually pull it into your chest and use your back as you're pulling the weight down, as opposed to letting gravity just push it down for you?
Yeah, I tell people that their pause, they should actually be like getting tighter because a lot of
Mhm.
times they'll see like a bit like you look at who's that irregular strength guy, the guy with
Julius.
yeah, so you'll see him and it's just like
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, dude, that guy's also like this fucking thick front to back. Like you're not that, I don't care who you are, you're not that big. Like you're not that big, you're not that strong, you're never gonna bench 700 raw. That guy's a freak of nature. Like, don't try to be like him. Like that, you want to look at guys who are like, you don't go to Jamal to learn how to deadlift because that dude, you know what I'm saying? Like, because
Well, yeah,
that,
it's like John Hack's squat. That dude is built for the fucking high bar squat like nobody I've ever seen. I'm just like, Jesus, that's beautiful.
right? And you're not going to look like him. I'm not going to look like him. What you want to do is you want to go to a guy like Kaylor Woolham, who had like a huge deadlift, right? But he also benched 440 with arms that were 10 feet long. Go to him to learn how to bench because that dude figured it out against like genetic odds that he shouldn't be very good. But yeah, what I tell you guys with a pause is like try to pause it on your t-shirt. Don't let it sink unless they're like a really big barrel chested person where they can kind of like sink it and heave it. But even then, like if you mistime that, you're going to jump your press command, and they might get you for a double dip too. Because every time someone does that, they bring it down and then they go.
Mm.
So I tell people to like pause it on their t-shirt, and then some people I've had them actually pause off their chest, almost like a spoto, but like closer.
Right.
What it teaches them is just to be like super, super tight in that moment. Instead of, because a lot of times as soon as it touches someone, they flatten out.
Right.
The other thing is benching into foam. So taking a rolled up yoga mat, putting it on your chest, because what happens is the bar touches the foam touches your chest and you collapse. But if you can work on pushing up into the foam while the bar is coming down, that helps teach people to stay tight, even though they're getting that feedback of something pushing on them.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's interesting. And I feel like people don't understand like the thoracic extension thing is the important part, not the lumbar extension. Like everyone tries to get their fucking belly button up, and I'm like, no, that's the wrong part. That's not helping you. Like the thoracic is what's leveraging your chest and giving you a higher touch point.
They're looking at old bench videos from guys in denim bench shirts.
Oh, okay.
Where it's like they're arching and they're trying to touch real, real low. That's like a thing of the past, and most of those guys have really fucked up shoulders because of that.
Sure.
So you have to be really careful with that. But yeah, the thoracic extension is huge, and that's something too that I think people get really stuck on is sort of like majoring in the minors. It's like if every time you get on a bench press, you get on a bench to bench press, you exaggerate everything until you're uncomfortable, eventually you're going to have a big arch. Like you just continuously do it. Just continuously do it. And eventually you'll have a bigger one. Like people say that I'm flat backed when I bench. It's like, yeah, go look at my videos from 5 years ago. That fucking flat backed, dude. Like, like terrible. And you just keep working at it, working at it, working at it. And then the other thing too is like the bigger you can get your upper back, the shorter your stroke is.
Right. Yeah, it lifts you up off the bench.
So if you can fucking have a huge upper back, dude, like it looks sick as fuck,
Right.
like you can see your traps through your hoodie, like you're in a fucking good spot. Second of all, it's all of the lifts, like your bench is going to get shortened. It's going to be easier to pick up a squat, and it's going to be easier to finish a deadlift if you got a big upper back, and your shoulder health will fucking thank you as well. So that's another way to kind of cheat the arch without necessarily having to like contort yourself like you're like some little Russian chick, So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where and like also like range of motion doesn't necessarily dictate ease of the lift.
Right.
So it's like you see the guys who pull sumo or trying to pull sumo, they're too super fucking wide. because they think range of motion is gonna, like a short range, gonna make them weight. And it's like, I mean, if the range of motion is super short, but you have literally no leg drive because your toes are touching the fucking plates, then what does that do? That doesn't do anything. And same thing, like if you arch like crazy and your feet are tucked way back underneath you and you have no stability, what does the short range of motion do for you? Nothing. So I used to tuck my feet underneath me, but I had a hard time stability in the bottom of my bench. So I just started putting my feet out in front of me. And
Right.
yeah, I probably lose a half inch of the shortened range of motion, but I feel way more stable and I actually get leg drive coming out of the bottom.
Yeah, that's one thing. I keep my feet flat like the USAPL rules say, but I just noticed that I have way more drive through my fucking quads if my feet are flat, right? Like if I'm on the balls of my feet, and the way I look at it is from a physiological or a physics standpoint, it's the more contact I can have with the ground and the tighter I can be everywhere else, the more energy I'm going to transfer through my body to be able to meet at my traps to move that bar up faster, you know?
Yeah, you wouldn't deadlift or squat on your toes.
Right. Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I tell some people like use your Olympic lifting shoes when you bench if you want to do that. Right. Then you have really good,
Yeah.
contact with the ground still. What I found interesting prepping is how much upper back work is involved in all the lifts. I like felt for me at least specifically that was like the one thing like, oh fuck, I'm not doing anywhere near enough upper back. Is there other areas that you think people are missing that are kind of like that transfer to all the lifts that are just kind of neglected or forgotten about a little bit?
Yeah, I think well, there's obviously, you know, with conjugate and West Side method, there's, no direct pec or quad work. Louis would say quads are a decelerator, because if you think about someone running, like their hamstring is going to pull them and their front foot's going to hit and it's going to decelerate and then the hamstring is going to pull, right?
Right.
But if you think about what are you doing in the bottom of a squat, decelerating, what are you doing at the top of a squat, decelerating? You don't just like pick up a bar and float into the atmosphere.
Right.
Like you pick it up and you stop, right? And yeah, like there might be some people with small legs, but like for their size, they're probably pretty big. Have you ever seen someone with a big squat, small quads? Because I haven't.
Right.
So direct quad work and then direct pec work too. I started doing that a couple years ago, 3 years ago, and it's really helped my bench. People get stuck on like triceps and lats, and it's like that's important in a bench shirt for sure. But also like most guys blow their pecs off in training doing something raw. So let's make sure our pecs stay in one piece, and our shoulders stay in one piece the same way that, with a raw lifter, you need your pecs out of the bottom too. So direct pec work, direct quad work, and like, I don't know, like doing stuff where you intentionally go like way far, knees over toes, I think is just something that some people miss, especially in multiply. But you want that area to be very strong. So if you shift forward in a squat, you have a best chance to not blow your shit in the smithereens.
Okay.
But yeah, those are the areas that I think that people like really lack focusing on. And like, I think raw people probably lack, the hamstring stuff just culturally because you can't see them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't see them, so you're not gonna fucking kill. And training hamstrings sucks ass. It's just
So
hard.
It
It's
hurts.
terrible. You know what I mean? Like it's just terrible.
Yeah, it hurts.
Like glutes. Like, when's the last time you walked out of the gym and you were like, I have a crazy glute pump? Like,
Actually, every time I do glutes, I'm the booty building guy because I get a lot of female clients and I know what they want, so I got to figure out how to do it.
yeah, I think that's really important too because people will do like kickbacks and they're like, wow, my hamstrings and low back. It's like that's not what we're training right now. You know what I mean? Like we're training glutes, so make sure that's the primary, mover and primary thing that gets sore. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily. Let me change my answer. I don't think it's necessarily one specific thing. I think that it's more so like actually training what you say you're fucking training.
Sure. Yeah, like actually having that bodybuilding approach and keeping the tension in the groups that you're looking for and stuff like that instead of muscle fucking
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, if you're training your pecs and your shoulders are tired, that's a problem. You know what I mean? Like, we want to make sure that what you're actually training is getting to work.
Right. Got anything over there, Nathan?
I again,
No?
I'm just
Nothing?
enjoying you guys.
You're just hanging out. Anthony,
We're
is there anything
blowing
else
his
you want
mind.
to promote or talk about, or how do people find you outside of Instagram? I know it's Trigger Warning Conjugate, right? And then CW Anthony 13, is that right?
Yeah, so trigger _warning _conjugate. My personal is Anthony CW13. I do an email drip. If you go to twcstayhated.com, sign up for the email. When you sign up for it, you get 4 free weeks of programming.
Nice.
And it's full-blown conjugate. It's 4 weeks that I took directly from my Patreon page, right?
Mhm.
So I also have a Patreon page that's linked to my Instagram that has like different levels. It's like I have a 350, a 15, and a 40. And then I do a Facebook group where I coach people too with video. And then I have another level above that, where like you get my phone number and we talk that way. But I've had people very successful at all of the different levels. Like, I had a dude go to the WPO and he's a Patreon member. Like, I don't even coach his videos. I'm good at coaching people physically and with the form and stuff, but where I really am strong is the programming. So I do a really good job there, and that's something that's my area where I feel the most comfortable. But yeah, the Patreon page is sick, dude. I think a lot of people are missing out. Like, for $3.50 a month, you get access to all of my training logs, so you can see like what I'm doing. I do a Mental Monday extended. We do the night crew training vlogs with the videos. I do thoughts from the gym, which is just like I just speak on something. And then also everybody on the Patreon page gets 5% off any apparel that they buy. So to me, it's a no-brainer. When I was coming up, like, if somebody at a high level had a $3.50 option to see what they were doing, I would have paid it, no questions asked. But yeah, so the best way to get a hold of me is just through Instagram. That's the best way. But I would say, like, if you're interested in the apparel, if you're interested in like having a heads up on like sales and what's going on with me specifically and what's going on with the training, I would sign up for the email list. We have like, a couple thousand people on there now. And everyone's just like super stoked on it. It's just another way to kind of see like what's going on under the hood. I'll do like this whole, I didn't really put it out on social media a lot until after, like, how hurt I was.
Mhm.
But everybody on the email drip knew because I put it all in there, and it's all on the Patreon too. So kind of like the stuff that I don't kind of let fly in the general public, I kind of like, you pay the money and you get to hear like what I actually think about stuff, that I won't put out on like just the general internet.
Nice. So if they want more of basically what we had today, full access, pay the man and he'll fucking tell you whatever you want to know. That's what I try to tell everyone that listens. Fucking just pay us and we'll tell you anything. It's not that hard.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the way like to do it. And I think you guys are doing a great job with this. I think having guys who aren't necessarily elite, like at lifting, running podcasts like this is super sick, because everybody who is at your level wants access to ask guys at my level or other people's level like questions and about their training, about what they think about stuff. And when you guys do stuff like this, you are giving those people a tremendous amount of value, because there are people around your strength levels and your experience level. I would love to be on a 2-hour phone call with me. And you're giving them access to that 2-hour phone call by doing this podcast. So I think it's really cool what you guys are doing. And, you know, thanks for having me on, because it's still amazing to me that anybody gives a fuck about anything that I'm saying. So it's pretty cool to get invited on stuff like this and just get a chance to kind of talk my shit and tell people, you know, spread the gospel of conjugate and powerlifting stuff.
Well, thank you for giving us your time. We feeling is definitely mutual. We're like, I don't know why anybody wants to talk to us, but
especially on a
keeps
Saturday.
Working out, and
especially on a Saturday.
Cool. Well, most people want to do it on Saturdays, Nathan.
Oh,
I don't think you don't realize that most people don't have a fucking Wednesday to do nothing.
Well, but a lot of people don't want to give up their weekends to just come talk about training. So I'm glad that
I'll
you
talk
joined
about
us.
it anytime, bro.
Yeah.
I'm here for it all day.
Nice.
This is live now, but you guys put out like a recorded version of it?
Yep. Yeah, we put it on YouTube and Spotify and Apple and all that stuff.
Sick. Yeah, cool, man. What does it drop? Like, so this is live now. When do you guys put it out?
In like 30 minutes.
Yeah, it'll be up.
You know, however long it takes to upload.
Make sure you, like, shoot me a message with the links and I'll share all of it. Something that I ran into, I did a podcast. Like, I don't know if you guys have listened to the one that I have, like, it's like close to 200 fucking episodes. It's something I ran into. I'd have people on and they like wouldn't share the podcast. And I'm like, you're lame. Like you gave you a platform to talk and you're not even sharing it. So make sure you send me
happens.
Listen, bro, people are fucking weird. They're cool enough to, they feel cool because you invited them on a thing, but you're not cool enough for them to share it. And that's fucking lame, dude. I
just look at it as maybe they're not good at the social media game. I don't know. Cause like, I'm very much like you where I'm all in. So like I post all fucking day long and most of it's podcast clips. Cause I'm like, there's not going to be I don't know who's going to see this. Like someone could see it at any given moment if I post it. And I don't give a shit if it annoys the people that follow me.
Yeah.
Like maybe they'll get the message finally.
They're following you because they care. And I think that's really rad, dude. That attitude that you have towards it is really cool. And I think that what you guys are doing is rad. So make sure you send me that link, dude. I'll share the shit out of it. This has been a blast. You guys do a really good job. And I love that like anybody who takes note of Mike Burrell and what he has to fucking offer is dope to me. Cause I think that dude, he's going to be one of those guys that when he's gone, people are going to realize how fucking much of a stud he is.
Oh, he's awesome. I love everything that he posts. And I'm like, man, this is just me, but older and way more angry. I can see it happening already. Like the shit he posts about people in his gym not giving a fuck and want to kick people out. I'm like, that is shit I think about routinely. I'm always telling people, I'm like, I will fucking fire you. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, this is a two-way street. This is not like, I'm not your bitch. It doesn't work that way. Like,
I literally got a hat made during this prep that I wore for like most of my big lifts that just said Mike greater than you.
That's awesome. We'll have to do one with both of you guys on here and fucking we'll shoot the shit.
You better bring the censor button, baby.
No, I'm already saying fuck enough times that we can't have any kid stuff in here. So I think I need other people to like water me down a little bit. So let's bring that on, please, because everyone thinks I'm crazy.
I'd be down to do it anytime, bro. Yeah. So yeah. Hey, thanks again for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was awesome.
Absolutely.
Sick. Let me know when it drops. We'll holler at you soon.
Sounds good, man.
Thank you.
All right, boys.
Have a good one.